What role did Anthony Fauci play in that? We now know, based on recently declassified documents, that the CIA even believes.
Do you think China's going to pay $25 billion?
We'll credit it towards that $25 billion judgment.
Does China hold a lot of assets in Missouri?
There are some. And again, we're still in the process of identifying assets, but they don't only have to be in Missouri. We can work with any willing partner across the United States of America to seize assets.
What kind of assets?
Think about my lawsuit against China. Again, like this is a first of its kind where we've sued China for inflicting the COVID pandemic on the United States of America and then hoarding PPE and depriving Americans and the government of the state of Missouri from being able to access the PPE that we need to respond to the pandemic they caused. What role did Anthony Fauci play in that? We now know, based on recently declassified documents, that the CIA even believes that the COVID-19 came from a lab in China, not randomly jumping from animal life to human life at some marketplace in Wuhan. Well, wasn't Fauci helping suppress some of that information? And what was his involvement in that research and in that lab in China? And so is there civil liability there? And again, I think people still demand justice for the wrongs that were perpetrated against the American people, not only by the Chinese government, but by the deep state like Anthony Fauci. And so, I think making that transparent through an investigation and airing that, it's not a bad thing. It can only be a good thing. And there might be additional liability points beyond the criminal code.
I mean, so in a picture perfect world, you would like to see the federal government conduct the investigations through all the people that were pardoned and have that information revealed to the American public.
I think we have a right to know. And I think that, again, first of all, I have grave concerns about the legal validity of any legal document that Joe Biden signed after he was determined by his own Department of Justice to lack the mental acuity for an intentional act. So yeah, I think we need to understand what happened there, what went wrong, and are there systems in place to redress grievances that are still available to us?
What would you do if you were the AG?
Well, let me say this. Pam Bondi, who is President Trump's nominee, who may very well be confirmed at this point, is going to be a fantastic United States Attorney General. I mean, I got to meet her and just think the world of her. She was the Attorney General of the state of Florida previously, so she's seen it from the state level. She's an incredibly gifted and talented attorney. She's a great manager and motivator of people, and she's going to have a large organization that she's going to have to not only clean house, eliminate the deep state, but reorganize and reprioritize missions to maximize the role that the DOJ is supposed to play. And so there's going to be a lot on her plate. She is up to the task and will get it done. And, I think that.
I'm asking if though.
Yeah.
If you were in there.
Yeah.
Not Pam Bondi. If you were in there, I'm just curious about how you think and what your strategy
I think you got to find resources to address these issues and to investigate these matters and to lay the information in front of the American people. To do otherwise is a form of censorship of information. And look, censorship is the lazy tool of a weak mind. And it's counterproductive. People don't trust their government if they don't think they're being told the truth.
Yeah.
And I think we look back at COVID and what happened and Dr. Anthony Fauci, and we feel like we were deceived and lied to.
Would that be a top priority of yours?
Absolutely.
What would some other top priorities be?
So I think there are 3 strategic objectives that have to be secured now. I think the top priority has got to be the border. If we don't have a border, we don't have a country. And the Biden-Harris administration not only allowed illegals to cross by refusing to enforce the immigration code, but they actually perverted the immigration code to find legal loopholes to allow people in under the parole process that we've had to file suit against to put a stop to. And the parole in the immigration code, there's a provision that allows the government to allow people into this country for a limited time, limited purpose on an individual basis. Well, Biden and Harris said, no, we're going to use that to allow in X number of Haitians, X number of Guatemalans, Y number of Hondurans. They created a visa program that was never authorized by Congress. That's a perversion of the law, an abuse of the law. It undermines the rule of law. And it hung an open sign. It not only allowed in people who had no legal right to be here, but it hung an open sign that created the porous border problem that's making Missouri communities and communities across the United States of America less safe. So we've got to secure the border. We've got to deport criminals who have violated the laws of the United States of America. That's got to be strategic objective number one. Strategic objective number two is the right to free speech. And again, it's dismantling the vast censorship enterprise in the government that started with the deep state, but was then energized by President Joe Biden. President Trump's already begun doing that with his executive order on day one. But we've got to have a free, fair, and open marketplace of ideas. We've got to end corporate censorship as well. And then really the third strategic objective in my mind is ending the weaponization of government. And we saw that abused, and it was counterproductive to the left. And I think that's why President Trump delivered this historic landslide election. And thank goodness the American people saw through that. But we've got to end the weaponization of government. So I think as Attorney General, those have to be the three strategic objectives to be secured if we're going to save the country.
Do you think those are her top priorities?
I'm sure they are. Now, she may articulate them differently, but that's the formula for the Make America Great Again movement that President Trump has started and is continuing on today.
What about stuff with Big Pharma?
Yeah, I mean, were we lied to there too? I think there's questions that need to be answered. Are we still being lied to about the efficacy of vaccines? Specifically the COVID vaccine that seems to not be a vaccine at all. And so, what incentives were in place that caused that to happen? And it's all about holding wrongdoers accountable and putting systems in place to ensure that it doesn't happen again.
I mean, there's a lot of talk about pulling, not enabling or taking away the right for Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson, Moderna to advertise on media channels. And so, I mean, I'm kind of curious about your thoughts to that. I don't think it really does anything.
I don't either. It's a weird marketplace because just because I see an ad for a vaccine on television doesn't mean I can then go personally buy that. There's an intermediary in the form of a medical professional that has to prescribe and then administer that.
I think where I'm going with this is because those are some top advertisers. I mean, I never watched legacy media ever. I get all my news from interviewing folks like you.
Yeah.
But me and my wife were in a hotel a couple weeks ago. I did decide, I was like, oh, let's flip it on. Let's just see what they talk about. I turned on Fox News. It was like 3 out of 5 ads were pharmaceuticals, and so what I'm kind of getting at is because those are obviously their top advertisers, then they control the narrative. And it's, if you don't talk about this, then we don't advertise with you. Now, if we make it illegal for them to advertise on legacy media channels, they also have God knows how many lobbyists. Isn't it Big Pharma has the second biggest? Is it the second biggest? I think Big Oil is number one.
Me. Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me.
It's one of the top 3. We'll just say that. And so wouldn't they just use their lobbyists to funnel money to the legacy media some other way, some other how, and to continue to influence media channels to, hey, don't talk about this, talk about this. There's business always finds a way around the law, it seems like. And so, I mean, how do you do it?
So I think you've done so much work exposing how taxpayer dollars in the public coffers go to things we don't want them to go to, and it shouldn't be happening. And you've exposed that in some of your shows. How much of that's happening with the medical industry and with Big Pharma now? And I think those are questions we need to answer. I think that I think that Dwight Eisenhower's farewell address is one of the most prophetic and intriguing speeches ever given in American politics.
Military-industrial complex.
Everybody remembers it for the military-industrial complex. But there was another part of that speech where President Eisenhower said he expressed concerns about the influence and the relationship and the marriage between federal dollars, big federal dollars, and medicine and science, and how you would create this elitist culture that would substitute their judgment for ours and would not have dissenting voices to test the veracity of what they're saying. Oh my gosh, he said that in 1960, is that right?
Something like that.
Yeah, I mean, that's a close, right? Didn't we see that on full display in 2020?
Yeah.
And in 2021 and in 2022? And is that going on now? And so, like, let's break up that relationship. Let's break that up and let's have a competitive, open marketplace where consumers make their own decisions rather than being spoon-fed based on this elitist culture and groupthink.
How do you do that, though?
Yeah, I think you got to follow the money. Like, what is funding these entities now? Are there federal dollars going to that? Can we cut those off? These are decisions that really have to be made in Congress through the budget process. But that's where I would start.
I mean, could the company just, I'm just spitballing here. I don't really know how it works, but, we talk about the lobbyists, we talk about the advertising, they control that space. Hey, don't talk about this. What about, what if a company just held a lot of CNN stock?
Yeah.
Then, hey, we're going to relinquish all of this stock if you continue this narrative. I just don't, there's so many ways that they could get in there. They're probably doing all of this already. It's probably not just advertising. And so in my opinion, I think the only way to actually do it is to, and I don't know how it just talked about this with Dr. Paul Saladino. It seems to be like the only way to do that would be some type of an education program and educate the people. But I still don't know, you know what I mean? Where it's like, hey, you're seeing all these advertisements. We all know legacy media is bullshit. They're all moving towards podcast form. It's ridiculous. It's like, oh, well, shit, we fucked ourselves up here. Let's just copy what the podcasters are doing.
Yeah.
But I think it's already done. But at the same token, I think there needs to be some type of a re-education. I hate saying that term because it sounds horrible.
Well,
but
counter speech. Maybe that's another term, is the best remedy for disfavored speech is counter speech. So how do we, can we, offer an argument in contradiction to what we're being spoon-fed? Mm-hmm. From a legal perspective, and this is something I'm excited about. I think Vice President Vance has been a big proponent of, again, using antitrust law to break up these unprecedented and dangerous consolidations of power that are manipulating the marketplace and ultimately harming consumers and the American people. And I think that's another fount of legal authority. I would think that this administration would reinvigorate the DOJ's antitrust section of the DOJ to start looking for targets. That was done under President Teddy Roosevelt to great effect after the Sherman Antitrust Act was initially passed into law to break up some of the large trusts and corporations. And I think it's time to reinvigorate that body of law.
Do you think Big Pharma plays a role are they the reason that natural medicines like psychedelics aren't hitting the market? Because it wipes out opiate addiction. It helps wipe out benzos. Like I said, I did it. Totally cleaned me out.
Yeah.
And how do you, you can grow that, a lot of this, you can grow this stuff in your house if you want to. It's not, you know what I mean? It's not out of the realm, which would be a huge cut in their income.
If that's happening, the legal question, and it stands to reason that it is, the legal question becomes, have they formed a combination in restraint of trade? Are they buying up outlets that might have been competitive, or buying up outlets that would offer a competitive counterpoint, counter speech? And if that's happening, you got an antitrust suit and you're off to the races.
Well, the food industry's doing it. We see it, and every time somebody comes out and with a natural deodorant or a natural toothpaste or a food that doesn't have any additives in it, you see Coca-Cola goes and buys it. Purina goes and buys it. Whoever, they go and they buy the company and use the same marketing, and it tricks people into thinking that that particular product is still healthy for the consumer when in reality
It's the
they
opposite.
put in the additives so it has a longer shelf life, and we're right back to square one trying to find the next thing. And so is that what you're talking about with pharmaceuticals?
Yeah. Look, if corporations, there are anti-competitive practices that are defined in the case law interpreting the Sherman Antitrust Act, and that violate both federal and state law and are the target of antitrust lawsuits. And if that's going on, then that's a great vehicle to fix the problem. Counter speech, I think I agree with you, is one great option. Consumer awareness, certainly. But antitrust litigation is another option.
Okay. Let's move back into your lawsuit against China. You had mentioned that they were hoarding PPE equipment.
Yeah.
I thought it was ridiculous that we have a virus that came from China. Everybody's wearing a mask that says made in China.
Yeah.
What other PPE were they hoarding? Respirators and
All of it. Yeah, it's not just masks. PPE, as you know, is so many different products that they were producing and holding. But isn't that the play of a communist government to like create a problem and then manipulate the marketplace that has the solution to the problem? And that's what you saw, and that was the evidence we put on. And look, again, that recently declassified CIA document pointing to the lab leak as the most likely source of the pandemic just increases the Chinese Communist government's culpability. And it further emphasizes Missouri's need to execute that $25 billion judgment we intend to obtain.
When do you think you'll be awarded that?
So the trial court has asked for some additional briefing that we're going to try to complete in the next week to 2 weeks. And then I would anticipate within the next 30 days, we'll get a judgment. And again, a judgment's a piece of paper. You got to go execute the judgment. Luckily, the Foreign Sovereign Immunities Act provides a method, a procedure by which you can execute that judgment.
So you may have just answered this, I'm not sure, but let's say you are awarded and you win the case. What court is that in? Is that in a federal court? Is that in a state court?
Yep.
Or is that in some type of an international court?
We're in federal court. It's the United States District Court for the Eastern District of Missouri. That was the best venue because it's a claim under a federal statute against a foreign sovereign. And again, this isn't some crackpot legal theory. It's the Foreign Sovereign Immunities Act, a statute that was passed in 1976, signed into law by, at the time, President Gerald Ford. And so there's the people's elected representatives in Congress contemplated that states might have lawsuits against foreign entities, and created a process. One of the examples, there was an instance in the Falklands War where an Argentine missile struck a commercial merchant vessel and sank it. And so the corporation then sued Argentina for the destruction of their property. And the court identified, like, look, that claim fits under the Foreign Sovereign Immunities Act. That's one example. Missouri's the first state that I know of to really raise a claim that infliction of a pandemic and then hoarding of PPE is a claim that fits under that statute. So it's in that respect, it's a novel legal argument, but it's been again tested all the way up to the 8th Circuit Court of Appeals, and I think it'll be successful.
So do you honestly think if you win this case, do you think China's going to pay $25 billion?
Not at all. And my proof is that they haven't participated in the lawsuit at all. I mean, they were granted due process under our laws. They do business in the United States of America. They know they have to be aware that this statute is on the books, that they have some liability under the Foreign Sovereign Immunities Act. They were served with process when we initiated the lawsuit. They're aware of it, but that's how little they think of these United States of America. They couldn't even be bothered to show up to court with $25 billion hanging in the balance. And doesn't that also point to their culpability? If you had a defense, you had an opportunity to show up and put it on, and you didn't do it.
So what happens then? Who holds them accountable? How do you get them to pay?
We find assets. We find Chinese assets,
You did
property,
mention that.
and then we take that judgment and we say, hey, federal government seize that property, sell it, and we'll take the check and we'll credit it towards that $25 billion judgment.
Does China hold a lot of assets in Missouri?
There are some. And again, we're still in the process of identifying assets, but they don't only have to be in Missouri. We can work with any willing partner across the United States of America to seize assets.
What kind of assets?
Real property are the best assets because they're easily liquefiable. But, any kind of asset.
Okay. So how do you find out if the Chinese state owns?
You got to search the registration on those to determine who owns them. And every state registers property interests differently. The Secretary of State's office for business entities. Recorder of deeds for real property.
I mean, I would imagine it's shell company after shell company after shell company after shell company. And so how do you sift through all that?
Yeah, it's going to take time, and it's going to take a dedicated team of professionals. But again, we didn't.
What would be an indicator?
There's a lot of open source information, and so again, you start pulling on that thread.
Okay. Let's move into IBM.
No matter where you're watching Shawn Ryan Show from, if you get anything out of this, please like, comment, subscribe, and most importantly, share this everywhere you possibly can. And if you're feeling extra generous, please leave us a review on Apple and Spotify podcasts.